Hello, my name is Joshua Keith, and this is theburningcoal.com, a website dedicated to God's glory, His grace, and our response to it. Today we're going to talk about being thankful for something better. Now, if you'll remember, we've been doing our Monday motivations as the Beatitudes, the attitude that we're supposed to have, but then we go and we take a look at the reward that God gives us as the thing to be thankful for. And that's what we're doing this week as well. We talked about on Monday being willing to withstand, and in particular being able to withstand in the face of persecution. Jesus says in Matthew 5:10, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." What we see here is a connection between the beginning of the Beatitudes and the end. In Matthew 5:3, Jesus talked about blessed are those who are poor in spirit, because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so now that we're coming full circle, he ends on the same thought. But I think that we see in this one a little bit different flavor of why we can be thankful for the kingdom of heaven. What we notice is that life in and of itself is full of difficulties. I count myself as someone who is very blessed. I'm very thankful for a lot of the things that God has given me. But that's not something that keeps difficulties from popping up in life. That doesn't keep me from getting sick. It doesn't keep my loved ones from getting sick. It doesn't keep us from having problems when it comes to finances at times. It doesn't keep us from having the stress and angst of having difficulties in our relationships. There are all sorts of things in this life that just because we're alive, we run into difficulties. But Jesus tells us that when we become a Christian and when we live according to His law and become like Him, that the difficulties get harder, that there are difficulties that are added to it, that we are going to be persecuted for righteousness' sake. As he says, the servant is not greater than the master. So if Jesus was persecuted, then we can expect that we too will face persecution. So that means that when we're faced with the difficulties of life, we now have something else that can be made harder. We may have a difficulty getting ahead in our job because we're not willing to have sin be a part of what we bring into the workplace. That can show itself in a lot of different ways. That can be not being willing to lie on behalf of the company. That may show up because we're not willing to engage in lewd behavior. We're not willing to engage in drinking parties. We're not willing to do those things that are worldly, and so it means that we may not be able to get ahead in our job in the same way. It also means that we may have relationships that end, that don't go in the way that is friendly or personable, because we are making stands for righteousness that are offensive to other people. And it can even get worse than that. Those are a lot of things that maybe we see in our day and age, but we know that it doesn't always stop there. We see in the life of Paul that he faced physical persecution. He would be stoned, he would be beaten, because he was willing to teach the gospel message when it wasn't popular. And it even brought about his death. And what Jesus is saying here is that even when these things happen, even though life is difficult in and of itself, even though it's going to become more difficult because we are following in Jesus' footsteps, that is okay. Because we're looking forward not to just the kingdom of heaven that we are part of now, which we definitely are, but also to the kingdom of heaven after this life. We know that good things are coming, that we will be with God, and that this momentary light affliction is nothing compared to the eternal weight of glory that we will get at that time. And so we can be thankful that we have something better to look forward to, better than what this life, even at its best, has something to offer. And better than this life has to offer when the world turns against us. We're okay with that. Because the reward that we have, what God has awaiting us, is going to be so much better than any hardship or difficulty that we may face, that it will be truly worth it all. I hope this lesson blesses you in your walk in His kingdom.